We decided to go to Cheesecake Factory and walk around the mall after we drank. It was me, my boyfriend, and his 2 friends, who are also my friends. Obviously, we couldn't drive there if we were drinking, so we called an Uber driver. The first Uber driver was nice. He was cool. Then the Uber driver that picked us up from the Cheesecake Factory, different story. Right off the bat, he looked like a clown. He pulls up in what looks like a white 1998 Honda Odyssey minivan. If you're curious, just look up what that looks like on Google Images. And he had all these stickers on it. Taxi stickers, obviously the Uber sticker, Lyft sticker, Trump stickers. And when we get in the minivan, he's wearing a legit top hat. Like when you see a chauffeur wear a top hat in the movies, and a striped white and black outfit. He had an Alexa plugged into his car, and he put post-it notes up that say, in quotes, "Say Alexa play." So then my friend was like, "Hey Alexa, play Pop Smoke." I'm sorry, I really needed to give you this backstory, but like for part 2. This is the time I had a racist Uber driver part 2. So we were all bumping to Pop Smoke, and we were all teed, so we decided to mess with him. We started asking him random questions, like, oh, how do you like driving as an Uber driver? Or what's your craziest experience with Uber? So we get to chit-chatting, and then my friend Mike decides to like pretend that he was a drug dealer and starts bragging that he bought a brand new 2020 Audi with his dealer money, which he didn't, and he's not a dealer. And the guy's like, yeah, I've definitely had my fair share of drug dealers. And we were like, how did you know? Like, what happened? And he was like, I've picked up my fair share of black people. And I was like, excuse me, sir, what? What did he say? But not for real, I was tight. I was like, excuse me, what? And I was like, so, like, what, how? And mind you, I was like teed. And when I'm teed, I kind of just say what's on my mind. And I was like, so you think every black person is a drug dealer? And he was like, pretty much. So when he goes to drop us off, I poured out my leftover fettuccine alfredo in his car and screamed he was a racist piece of shit. This is the reason why everybody thought I dropped out of high school. Over the 4 years of high school, I was probably in school a total of 100 times altogether. And this wasn't because I was lazy, I mean partially, but it was mostly because I had really bad stomach problems. So I always had these doctor's appointments, I was always missing school because my stomach hurt. So then my junior year, since my attendance was really bad, they decided to put me on home instruction. This means that teachers would come to my house for about 2 hours a day, 3 days a week. And my teachers had to bring with them these time slips. For example, saying that they saw me from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And when I was a minor, my dad had to sign it. And when they hand in those time slips, those are the hours they're getting paid for. So I had this one teacher. She was my history teacher, but we would literally just gossip the entire time. She was mad chill. Sometimes, though, she would cancel on me, and sometimes I would cancel on her. But this was my senior year, so I was 18. So I was able to sign the time slips. So I saw her once a month when I was supposed to see her 4 times a month. So every time she came, I signed 4 time slips. I got the credit, she got the check. This is my tattoo horror story. So this was for my 19th birthday, I believe. I really wanted like a tiny little crown tattoo on the back of my neck. I saw it on Pinterest and I was like, I need this tattoo. I need it right now. So I messaged my normal tattoo guy and he was already booked for like the next few days. And like I said, I wanted it right then and there, which was a very big mistake looking back at it. And it was a Sunday, so not many tattoo shops were even open in the first place, except for one. I wish I could just out this place. It is literally the most horrible place run by the most horrible people. But anyway, I go in. He told me that he could do it, but it has to be bigger because he can't do something that small. Which I've seen tattoo artists do tiny little tattoos, so that was the first red flag. But I was being impulsive and stubborn and I really wanted that tattoo right then and there, so I said okay. He put the stencil on me and it looked small, it looked good. After having him tattoo my neck for over an hour and a half, I started to get worried. Part 2 of my tattoo horror story. So I was in the tattoo shop for about 2.5 hours. This wasn't because he was tattooing me for 2 hours, but because he kept on taking short breaks. He kept on telling me that he had to take a smoke break. And I was like, okay, that's fine, do what you gotta do. It was only him and another guy working there, nobody else. And every time he would take a smoke break, him and his coworker would go outside. During like the 3rd smoke break that they had, I had to pee, so I went to the bathroom. And when you're coming out of the bathroom, you're able to see outside, like through the window. So I noticed that the guy that was giving me my tattoo had a pill bottle in his hand. I kind of figured it was like Tylenol or something. But he was pouring it into his coworker's hand and he looked mad sus. So I go back and I wait in the room, sitting in the chair. Mind you, my friend was with me. And they took another 10-15 minutes to come back. And the way that I was sitting, my head was kind of like leaning down. So every time he would come back, the door was behind me, so I didn't really have to look at his face. And keep in mind that this was the longest break that he took the whole time. So after we left, my friend told me that time that he came back, he had white powder all in his nose and he was trying to wipe it off. And my tattoo got infected. Story of the time I almost got in a fight over road rage.
I know you probably are thinking because of my road rage, but no, sweetie, because of some stupid little girl's road rage. So I was driving on this main road in my area, and it's basically the road that leads to like everything, like the mall, different food places, just basically everything. And if you're from Jersey, then you know that people suck at driving. So the speed limit on this road is about 50. But there's always traffic because everybody goes on that road. And the drivers over here love to cut in front of people. So somebody that was 2 or 3 cars ahead of me decides to weave in front of somebody right before a stoplight. So the first person slams on the brakes, then the second person slams on the brakes, and then I slam on my brakes because I wasn't about to hit somebody. And little miss driving a 2001 Mercedes-Benz decides to honk her horn at me as if it was my fault and pulls up next to me with her windows down. And I'm like, bitch, like, you really think that it would be my fault if you slammed in the back of me? If anything, it's the 2 cars ahead of me's fault, not my fault. So we're at the stoplight next to each other. She starts screaming. Story of the time that I almost got in a fight with a girl over road rage. Part 2. So she pulls up next to me. I obviously assumed it was because she wanted some type of confrontation, so I pulled down my window. And I'm sorry to this girl if you're watching this. I guess you were just like uninformed and you didn't realize that like that whole situation would have been my fault if you did rear end me. It would be like the 2 cars ahead of me, you know, that like slammed on their brakes in the first place, but it's fine. You live, you learn. So she starts talking about, learn how to drive. You don't know how to drive. Why don't you go back to driving school? You obviously don't deserve your license, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, sis, you're the one that's going to have to go back to driving school when you get those 2 points on your license for rear-ending me. You realize that this accident, if there was an accident, would have been your fault by law. And the stoplight that we were at, of course, had to be the one stoplight that literally you have to wait like 45 seconds to like go green again. We're sitting there just going at it back and forth. And she's like, what's up then? What's up then? What's up then? So trashy. But then the light turned green. Story of the time my family thought I was hungover when I wasn't. So it was Christmas Eve, and my family doesn't celebrate Christmas, so in the past I've gone to friends' houses or boyfriends' houses that I've dated to basically celebrate with their families. But even though we didn't celebrate Christmas the traditional way, we would always go to the movie theaters on Christmas Day. So it was Christmas Eve and I went to my best friend's house at the time, and I had went with her to midnight mass. So we were out pretty late that night. And then when we got back to her house, I'm pretty sure we did each other's makeup or she did my makeup or something, and we were just hanging out watching movies, doing nothing that we weren't supposed to. So the next morning I woke up with really bad period cramps, and when I was a teenager, I was always really scared to like ask my friends or like ask my friends' parents for medicine or water even. So I called my mom and told her she could pick me up and asked her to bring me a Tylenol and 2 water bottles because I was really thirsty. So my mom comes, I get in the car, and the first thing my sister says to me is, oh, you're dehydrated? You need Tylenol? Why is that? Part 2 is posted already. Go check it out. Link in bio. Story of the time my family thought I was hungover when I wasn't. Part 2. So my family comes to pick me up, and my mom had brought me 2 water bottles and a Tylenol. And right when I get in the car, my sister's like, oh, what do you need 2 water bottles for? Why are you dehydrated? You need Tylenol? You have a headache? What's going on? And I was like, yeah, I do have a headache. Only because I was 15 at the time, and talking about my period in front of my dad was just not an ideal situation. Then she was like, oh yeah, you were at midnight mass. Imagine my quotation fingers, by the way. And I was like, yeah, I actually was at midnight mass. And she starts like quizzing me like, oh, like what did you learn about? What was the preacher preaching about? Like how long were you there? And I was like, you really think that I was trying to pay attention? Like I was just there to support my friend because she had to go. So then the entire car ride, we keep going back and forth screaming at each other. And now that I'm telling this story, it wasn't really my family that thought I was hungover. It was kind of just my sister trying to convince my parents that I was, which is literally so annoying. I was so beyond pissed off. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wait in the car until the movie's over. But my mom just ended up taking me home. Story of the time that me and my friends jumped off a bridge. And no, I do not advise you to jump off a bridge, so don't do that. This is something that I did when I was 14 and stupid. So I had this one friend, and he was always that kid who was doing front flips and back flips and just like always being so active and crazy. So me, him, and a group of our friends all went to the beach one day. And he was telling us about this bridge that he would always come to in the summer to like jump off of it into the water. And none of us were planning on jumping off this bridge except for the kid. So we get to the bridge, and it's not like too high up, but like it's still like scary. Like if you were to like be leaning over the edge of it, you'd be scared. I mean, at least for me. So the second that we get to the bridge, he decides to jump off of it and do a front flip. And one of my girlfriends who was there as well jumped off the bridge too. And then another person, then another person, then everybody except for me jumped off the bridge. Until they somehow convinced me to want to. By the way, this didn't end pretty. Like for part 2. Story of the time me and my friends jumped off a bridge. Part 2. So they eventually convinced me to jump off this bridge. So I stood up on this railing type thing. It was like a ledge, and I jumped into the water. And it wasn't like 1, 2, 3, like easy, just jump in. I was literally like so scared. Not gonna lie, it kind of felt good while I was doing it. I was like, dang, I'm not gonna do it again, but that was cool. And mind you, like, I didn't even think about it at the time, but we were literally trespassing. You're not supposed to jump off a bridge. Then once I'm in the water, I'm like, wait a minute, how am I gonna get out? Because like I said, my friend who would always like do these crazy stunts, he was very like active. Like he was able to like climb a tree, no problem. Do a backflip on a thin wire, no problem. He was just really good with like things like that. So at that point, he already jumped off the bridge and climbed back up like 5 times. And he made it look really easy. So then I start climbing up this wall where there's literally coral, scratching up my toes and my hands. And he was at...
Thing I learned is when cops show up to a party, do not hesitate to run. There was a group of kids that stayed hiding in the basement. They hid in a closet, they hid in just like under the couch and rooms and shit. And then there was another group of kids who ran out the back door. Me and my buddy were a part of that group. So we're all running like a free-for-all, and this kid's backyard is just straight wilderness. Me and my buddy end up getting separated, and I'm fucked because my phone is dead. We gotta be at least like a quarter mile into the fucking forest by now, so I'm freaking out. I need to find my buddy. We need to meet up and do what his dad told us to do. So I'm standing all alone in the woods, and I just start screaming, "Gary!" A few seconds goes by. I hear my buddy scream from a distance, "Gio!" So we keep screaming like that until we eventually find each other. And my buddy was just with 2 random girls that we like didn't even know. They were staying by him because they were scared and they didn't know where to go. So now it's time to execute the plan his dad told us to do if shit went wrong. My buddy picks up...
Story of the time Miley Cyrus went to my elementary school. So I was in 1st grade, and all the cool kids sat at the round table during lunch. And one of the cool kids was absent one day, so I ended up sitting there. I sat next to this girl named Riley. And over the school year, me and Riley became really close friends. One day at the lunch table, she told me she had a really, really big secret that she could only share with me and that I can't tell anybody else. She told me that she was Hannah Montana. And at first, I was a little bit confused because I saw Hannah Montana on TV and she didn't really look like her that much. But then she had told me that her hair was just a wig because her hair was blonde and her actual hair is brown. And her family told her that she had to tell everybody her name was Riley, but in reality, her name was Miley. She invited me over her house to see her walk-in closet and to also show me herself without her wig. Little 1st grade me was so hype about joining the cool table, but not only that, now I was friends with Hannah Montana. So I went to her house and then soon realized she wasn't Hannah Montana.
When my daughter was born, she had dark skin and looked like her parents could be of African descent. My husband was furious and accused me of cheating and left right then and there. He told everyone on both sides of the family what happened and wanted a divorce. Then his friends and families all called me to say how upset they were and called me really nasty names. My mother was by my side the entire time as I kept professing my innocence. He refused to pick me up from the hospital, threw my stuff out on the lawn and changed the locks. When my sister called to get the baby stuff, he texted her a picture of a bare nursery room and said he got rid of everything. He even destroyed my art studio. Eventually, he agreed to do a paternity test and he was 100% the father. No one could believe this, so he did it again and he was the dad. One of his cousins did the ancestry thing and found out there was 30% of African in their family. This made Jim's paternal great-grandmother admit to having an affair around the same time Jim's grandfather was born, and because he could pass as hers, she just assumed her husband was the father. Since then, he's been reaching out and everyone has come to apologize. I told him I needed time and he asked to see the baby and I let him, but I'm too afraid to physically hand her to him. I've never cheated and have been 100% innocent all this time. Am I the asshole for not wanting to give him a second chance?
Storytime about one of the most embarrassing things that has ever happened to me in high school. So a little background information. I was in my freshman year of high school. Well, spring break was coming up. Well, the whole year, my friend and I hadn't been to one single party. So we decided that we wanted to try and go to a party every single day of spring break, which was about to be super difficult because we had to worry about my strict-ass parents and my neighbors. A little background info on my neighbor. My neighbor is this girl who's in my same grade and she literally hates my guts. I don't know why, but literally anything that I do, she'll go and she'll tell her mom and then her mom will tell my mom because my mom and her mom are best friends. But before we know it, Saturday comes around and we go back to school on Monday. We did not make it to one single party. Well, later that night, we found out that one of our friends was throwing one. So around 11 o'clock, everybody's sleeping and I walk out my back door, hop over my fence, and I start heading towards the road where my friend was going to be parked. You know, who do I see fucking sitting outside on their porch reading a fucking book? My fucking neighbor. Like for part 2. Part 2 about the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me in high school. So like I said, the bitch that I hate is sitting out on her porch reading a fucking book at 11 o'clock at night. So I crouch down so she couldn't see me. I run to the car and my friend and I finally go to the party. Well, we get to that party and it's really boring, so we decided to go to a different one. And the party that we were about to go through was being thrown by the kid that I really liked. So I start hanging out with him when we get there. I'm drinking a lot, having so much fun, and I really have to go to the bathroom. And I didn't know where anything was at all, so I grabbed my friend and we're looking around everywhere for the bathroom. Because when I asked him, he was super drunk and really couldn't explain to me where the bathroom was. So we were pretty much left to fend for ourselves. But we ended up not being able to find a bathroom, and this is where I had to improvise.